Hello everyone, Dr. Eames here. What I'd like to talk to you about this time is some introductory material from our first chapter in Fundamentals of Management. Basically, the manager and the manager's job. What we see is that, first of all activity, human activity, takes place in one of the three sectors. We have the private sector, the public sector, and the nonprofit sector. And the activities vary in these sectors that we do. Of course, the private sector is about profit, and that's where business operates. The public sector is about government, and government extends from the federal government to the state government, all the way down to the very local level. So if you have a manager's job in a city, that's a public sector job. Or if you have a manager's job in some federal agency, same thing. The nonprofit sector is a little bit different. This is where we find organizations that are dedicated to an idea or improving society in some way, something like that. What we find is common here in all three sectors is that managing is more or less the same. We have an emphasis on different factors and different things that we have to deal with in each sector, but certainly the act of being a manager, of getting people to do what you want, of organizing and controlling, leading, and doing all the planning that's necessary, these things all happen more or less along the same continuum of behavior. It just depends on what we're doing, what's going to happen here. When we talk about what management really is, we have to say that it is a bona fide profession. And it is a fairly new one, actually. We didn't really get management as a real profession until maybe the turn of the 20th century, although we had ideas about human behavior and how to organize and lead people and manage them and so forth, percolating for the previous sector for certain. But we have to say that management is a profession. It's founded on scientific method. But at the same time we say that, there's a lot of creativity that happens in being a manager depending on your context. And so there's artistic expression as well. Now when we say something is based in scientific method, we're talking about a very specific set of factors here. Scientific method means repeatable experiments, being able to generalize, using laws and theories and so forth, and we have a very rational logic approach to solving problems and planning strategy and so forth. Much of our society is very logic and rational based, so in America much of what we do is really based on scientific method. But when we say something's an art, we're looking at some different factors. We're looking at creativity and so forth, and this is a little harder to find. But we do find that good managers are following scientific method because that's what our society relies on as its foundation. But at the same time, to get the job done, we have to be as creative as possible because the human condition sends us to lots of different areas that we have to be smart. So let me give you a definition here of management. It's just a set of activities, and those activities are directed at an organization's resources. Those resources are physical, human, information, and financial. And the aim of using these resources is to achieve the organizational goals in some sort of efficient and effective manner. Today, contemporary management, the most recent theory, and I think what most organizations are operating under, is contingency management. In other words, the actions of you as a manager in your organization are contingent upon that context that you're in. And your context, of course, is your business environment. What industry you're in, what are all the factors that you're dealing with there. So contingency management is making decisions based on the context, using best practices and whatever works. We're not saying that there's a universal method here that is the best way to do things. In fact, it's the opposite. We say there may be another way to do it that works for us. And as long as a method or process or something you're doing in business is ethical and moral and legal, then it's fair game. Go ahead and do it. And so we use those ideas and operate in those areas using behavioral science knowledge to motivate people, to create engagement with our employees, and to get the work of our organization finished. So that leads us to, what is an organization? Well, certainly it's a group of people, but they are working together in a structured and coordinated fashion to achieve a set of goals. Therefore, management is a set of activities in an organizational setting, and it's an ongoing process everywhere you go. Now, this leads us to talk a little bit about what types of employees do we have out there that we have to work with. Well, there's just two types of employees when we really break it down. There are exempt employees and they're non-exempt. And these two terms come from the Fair Labor Standards Board law that we got in 1928 that set the first real rules for the workplace: the 40-hour work week, time and a half for overtime, holiday pay, all those sorts of things, and rules on employing minors and things like that. If an employee is exempt, then that means they're kind of a managerial sort of employee. That means they work on salary, not hourly. A salaried employee is not subject to the Fair Labor Standards rules of that legislation. So therefore they are exempt from the rules, and that's why they're called exempt employees. And so this is usually applied to management, independent contractors, things like that, people who are not having payroll deductions, their hours are not being kept, and so forth. So that leaves the rest of the employees as non-exempt. They are not exempt from the rules, and that means that they work generally a 40-hour week. In our country, after that, they get overtime. There is a rules set up within each organization of sick leave and holiday pay, which are considered more or less benefits and so forth. So that's how we start, and that is basically the manager's world. One final concept for this time: efficiency versus effectiveness. Now, certainly we want to be efficient in everything we do in business. Efficient means saving money as we go, finding the cheapest way to do things, but also we have to find ways that don't affect our quality. So being efficient means we do things as fast as we can do it and still produce good quality, things like that. Money-saving measures along the way. But it's not enough just to be efficient in business. We want to be effective. And the definition of effective means we've accomplished something. We've reached our goal. We've been, in fact, effective. Effective is where we have to be in business. It is much more important than saying being efficiency. Efficiency really is talking about having low waste, saving time, and so forth, where effectiveness means we're achieving our goals and we're doing the things that we say we're going to do. Okay, that's it for this time, folks. We'll follow up with some other videos on other parts of the chapter.